I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, Velocities in Music. Today at Velocities in Music, we're going to review Widespread Panic's 2010 release, Dirty Side Down. What an awful album title! One of the worst. What sort of imagery does that bring to your mind? That's my question, and I want to comment at www.velocitiesinmusic.com because I'm disgusted. Now, the album by Widespread Panic, this is their 11th album, and these guys have a very, their sound is so centered around their live, this is a live band like you would get with Dave Matthews. I get a ton of Dave Matthews, some of the Southern rock aspects of just like the Black Crowes, even some Pearl Jam in there that I really like what they present. Leonard Skinner, good call. But what do you think, Tom, of Widespread Panic's Dirty Side Down?
I was actually pleasantly surprised by this. It was a lot stronger than I thought it was going to be. Now, the thing is, like Jake said, this is really, they're a live band. I've heard that their live performance is just amazing. I'm sure it would be when you get that kind of bluesy Southern jam band. I mean, that's what it's always been about, all the way back to Leonard Skinner and the Allman Brothers and such. And obviously these guys draw some influence from that, but they also, they're a lot more rock-centered than that even. I even got a lot of, in like the first track especially, some Rush even. Yeah,
that's a more progressive track on the album.
Exactly. And so they do a lot of cool things with song structures on this album. It never gets boring in that department. However, the album as a whole does drag on quite a bit. It's 12 tracks. Most of them are at least 5 minutes. And I think some of that is kind of unjustified. Especially like the instrumental track, St. Louis, in the middle of the album. It's a nice little instrumental track, but it just doesn't really do a lot. I don't know, maybe it's kind of a segue, kind of separating the parts of the album. But it's pretty good. Obviously, great instrumentals. And great, not just individual instrumentals, but they know how to work together. There's a good instrumental synergy between all the parts of the band. And that's really nice. And the vocals work well with that. They're able to sit on top of these complex instrumental arrangements and actually enhance it rather than take away from it. For the most part, some of the time, I will say, the lyrics are pretty bad. And they can kind of take away from things. There are a few spots where I just go, oh, that's just a terrible line. But it doesn't like kill the whole album. It's only really in a few spots. My other big complaint is that I think it kind of slopes off at the end. I think it starts out a lot better. And one thing I was really careful to ask myself is this, because with a lot of these styles that can get kind of bland after a while, you have to ask yourself, well, are these last tracks actually worse than the beginning, or is it just because of the order they're in? Would I like the last tracks as much as I like the first tracks here if they were in their position? And I actually don't think it's the case on this one. I really think that the beginning of the album, towards the middle, has most of the stronger songwriting. One
thing that definitely bothered me. See, I actually liked St. Louis just fine. What I felt like is that as a whole, the album is quite long, and the songs you could have chopped a minute. I felt like I was listening to like a southern version of LCD Sound System. Like these songs are just way too long. That's my main criticism of this album, because everything else is so darn good, except the lyrics, except the album kind of trailing off at the end. Those are the biggest criticisms. But otherwise, this is a really nice album. My biggest compliment to Widespread Panic, especially since it's their 11th album, is how well they can capture their live essence on an album. So many bands, you listen to them live, and they're so much better live than they are on an album. They fail to capture that essence on the album. Widespread Panic definitely accomplishes this with Dirty Side Down. And I just want to know what the hell's up with the crazy, horrible album title. I really think that would be like the keystone to solving the Widespread Panic mystery. And I'm never going to find it, and so I'm always going to be frustrated.
One thing that I wanted to comment on also that surprised me is actually how catchy some of these songs are.
Absolutely.
There were a few of them that were cycling through my head after first listen, which is really saying something about this genre, because it usually doesn't focus on that.
True to My Nature.
True to My Nature is one. Also, I thought that Visiting Day and Saint X, which actually those are my 3 picks, I'll go ahead and say. But those really got stuck in my head. I was like, wow, these guys really have something good going.
I really like Dirty Side Down. The album what's it?
Title
track. I think that song really reminded me of Dave Matthews, which, you know, I really like Dave Matthews, so I was pretty pumped about that. And then I love Visiting Day, Clinic Cynic, which I just think is it the other way around? It's a great song. And then True to My Nature, I loved that song. I thought it was really cool. But overall, just a really solid album with a good mood, too. Like, Southern rock typically has that, so that's not something that really blew me away, but I really enjoyed it at the same time. Overall, I think Tom, just because, you know, it kind of trails off at the end, I'm even going to go lower than what we discussed earlier. I'm probably going to go 69 on this. I think this is a totally solid album. A couple things keeping it from an upper 70s release from me, but very solid.
I'm going to go 70. And here's the deal. We mentioned this briefly after the last episode we did, Avenged Sevenfold, where we feel like we had mostly good things to say, but then we give it, you know, a good but still kind of mediocre score. And the thing is, there are, this as well as Avenged Sevenfold, I thought, there are some standout tracks, and there's a lot of good things to say about that, but there's just too much filler in between, too much slow, dragging space. So, you know, we want to focus on the good things about bands, but at the same time, these guys aren't doing anything really revolutionary. It's pretty derivative. At the same time, though, this is my first experience with Widespread Panic. It's like their 11th album. They've been around since like the late 80s. So, please, tell us, if you're a big Widespread Panic fan, I would love to know what other albums of theirs I should be checking out, because I'm interested now. This has sparked my interest. I'm really eager to hear more of these guys.
And what do Widespread Panic fans think of the album title?
Yeah.
Tell us at www.velocitiesandmusic.com. We'd love to talk to you. But I think that wraps it up, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we are VIMTV, moving music critique forward.